Thank you very much. This is Indian. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the work that you do and the background that brought you there, and
All right.
so excited to hear about it.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for asking us and asking us back, and I'd like to thank everyone who has shown up today. And of course, I'd like to thank my beautiful partner, the Reverend Ayana Mohika, for her support. My name is Dr. Mahees Sadhu. For those of you who are curious, Mahees is an Egyptian name, and it means he who is true beside her. And we have a school called the Golden Chalice Mystery School, and it is based on the teachings of Mary Magdalene, the path of the Magdalene, and the Egyptian Isis lineage of alchemy. And so in this work, it's basically spiritual ascension, spiritual development, energetic work, clearing, healing, and those associated practices that help people clear, get in touch with their true selves, and able to ascend into higher vibrations, and also be able to, just as you had referred a minute ago, see where we are spiritually, whether we are lost and stuck in third dimensional matrix, or whether we're able to ascend to that fifth dimension and that fifth dimensional matrix. And in essence, that is the core of what I wanted to talk about today. Because we know that the planet and humanity as a whole is going through times of change. We are on a path of planetary ascension, and each one of us has our purpose and our part to play in that. And that, in essence, is why we are here. That is why there are so many people who are being awakened today to see the difference between third dimensional reality and the possibility that there are higher possibilities, higher dimensions, to understand and realize that there is interdimensional life that we share, that we are one with this planet, with every living sentient being on this planet. And what does that mean for us? How does that knowledge help us in fulfilling our sacred purpose for being here? And also, how do we reach out and help others who are also seeking or on that same path? And so, as Reverend Danielle had mentioned, my partner talked 2 weeks ago on Divine Feminine. We know that this is a period of time in the history of this planet where the Divine Feminine is making a reemergence. That is plain to see. And the title of my talk today is called The Wisdom of the Dragon. People don't realize, especially important because we're in the year of the dragon, the Chinese year of the dragon, but people don't realize that a dragon is a feminine energy. We think that it's male energy because it's ferocious and fire breathing and so on, but actually it's a feminine energy. And at this time, we see, along with the rise of feminine energy, we see the rise and the return of dragons. They are vibrating at a higher level, so we don't know and see and understand that they are with us. They have always been present with us. But they have gone to a higher state because they've been persecuted. If you think about the Western ideal, Western European ideal especially, of a dragon, what are some of the pictures that come to your mind? fire-breathing,
Scales,
scaly,
wreaking havoc.
living underground, the sacrifices that people have to make to those.
Puff the magic dragon.
There you go. There's a gentler
Had to throw that
dragon.
one in there.
Yeah.
There's a gentler
Sort
dragon.
of balance it out.
Pete's dragon. I think for all of us that had kids watching Disney movies.
That's right. But it's a mythical creature, and literally every culture around the world has some myth or legend about dragons, or they call them sometimes the great snakes. And during those times, many cultures killed the dragons, hunted the dragons, saw them as evil, and going all the way back to the Garden of Eden, where the snake had tempted Eve. So throughout our history, certainly, we see that the dragon is something to be avoided, where in actuality, if you think about it and take it on a higher level, again, that's a patriarchal aspect, spin on a feminine energy, a feminine power, just as the feminine had been suppressed for so long. Anything to do with feminine energy and feminine power had been suppressed as well in those early patriarchal times. As it started to take root, the dragon is part of that as well, and that's why we see the emergence of the dragons today. And I think that we're going to hear and see and feel more and more about dragons and their power, their essence, as we go through these next decades as well. And as the planet ascends as individuals and as a collective group avatar, as we help the planet ascend, we will see and feel this power rise again. And that is also one of the things that we teach. We teach about dragons. There's many different types of dragons. Each one has its own color, characteristics, qualities that it engenders. And each person has their own personal dragon, whether you realize it or not.
I'd heard that, yeah.
And it coils down at the bottom of the belly. We call it the kundalini. Some people have a name, call it the kundalini. But again, it's that same power, that essence that rises. And you can identify and connect with that power and use that power just as you can any other energy in the body. It is just another
You're saying
type
it's
of
a
energy.
feminine energy, but both men and women have it.
Correct. Oh, yeah. Just like men and women both have divine feminine, divine masculine energies, it's the same. And you can connect and use that energy just as any other energy. So in today's society, we see that as the divine feminine and the goddess is making a reemergence, we as men, and speaking of divine masculine in the 21st century, we as men need to make room for this. We need to embrace this and realize that this is the natural progression, the natural way of the planet and these times that we are in. This dimension, in this time and space, is set to go through this change, this ascension, and further ascension cannot be made, is not possible until all of this collective change happens, to allow, to break down the old barriers, to break down the old blockages, to help eliminate. And it's perfectly apropos what you spoke about earlier, Reverend Danielle, because if we attach and hang on to those old feelings, it does not allow us to let go and open up and make room for the new powers that are emerging, for that feminine. So as a male, as a masculine, as divine masculine in today's society, in these times that we are in and that we are starting to go through, we as men have to look at and change our perspective of how we interact with the world, how we interact, how we are part of that world, and how we interact with all of the goddesses that are in our lives or that we come in contact with. Every woman is a goddess, small and large. And that is the eyes with which we must see.
That was a compliment. Affirmation.
An exclamation point.
I'm like, I didn't see anybody over there.
And so we as males, we as masculine, divine masculine, must make that room. We must make that adjustment within ourselves so that old feelings, old teachings, old traditions are allowed to pass away, because there is a new that's coming, and the new is more powerful. The new is what's going to take us to that next dimension, that next level. And we can't, either as individuals or as a planet, as a collective humanity, cannot rise to that next step, that next level, until and unless that happens. And so what does that mean? The first step is to see and realize and relate to every woman as a goddess. What does that mean? My name, and I specifically gave you the meaning of the name, he who is true beside her, because that in essence is what I'm talking about. Every woman is a goddess, which means that as divine masculine, as men, we must see that, understand that, feel that, take that inside. And our roles are changing. As men, our roles change. Divine masculine is a guardian and protects the goddess in all women. The divine role of the divine masculine is one of support. And setting aside ego, and I just wanted to make a footnote to what you were talking about before when you talked about going back to the root of your anger. Speaking for myself only, every time I've gone back to the root to find out why I had a particular feeling, 9 times out of 10 it was rooted in my own ego. And so understanding and seeing that was very enlightening for me. But that's what we need to do, is set aside that ego and serve. That's what we're called to do, to serve. If the feminine power is rising, and the feminine power is the key to all ascension, then masculine needs to step aside, let the feminine power blossom, and support, protect, guide, and help be a benefactor to that feminine power so that it can rise and be able to fully develop as it should, as it needs to. Again, as men, if we hang on to old ideas, old feelings, and old traditions, we in essence block our own enlightenment, block our own ascension, and all that does is anchor us back down into the third dimension. So as men, we have to realize that there is a shift and a change in how we interact with ourselves, how we see ourselves. It starts with how I see myself. Am I the macho man that has all the answers and can make things happen? Or can I set that aside and let our partner lead and come beside her and support her and help do all the things in the background that help her ascend to the place that she needs, continue to do the work that she needs to do to, again, collectively help us all ascend and rise.
I think it's worth noting at this point that for women, it's important for us to recognize our new role, to step into this power, and to do it with appreciation and gratitude for the men that support us. And our roles are changing as well. We're no longer these women who sit at home and wait for someone to just make an income for us. You know, we're stepping into our roles as divine feminine. So the shift is really happening on both sides.
Exactly.
And, you know, as men have the responsibility to shift, so do we. And, you know, I couldn't do what I do without Adam's support. And he gets a little embarrassed when I keep giving him the accolades, but I couldn't do it, what I do, without the support that he gives me.
That's right.
Exactly. And also, I wanted to mention, bringing this back around, is that it's not the one leading and the other following, either way, either male or female, but it's a balance, a union of the two. That is what is the natural way of ascension. There has to be that divine union, and unless we all, each of us as men and women, step into our roles and fully take on that role and fill that role, both individually and collectively, there never will be an equality, a balance. And so that divine union must happen. That's also part of the ascension. There must be that divine union, and by that divine union, I'm talking about sexually, I'm talking about as far as energetically, I'm talking about the specific work that each of you do collective, together and individually. There must be that balance, there must be that union where you support and work together to help each other. Otherwise, again, we're in the way of our own ascension, and we keep blocking, keep working to get there, and then unknowingly, many times, we block ourselves and are not able to make that connection. The other thing I wanted to point out, again, going back to your opening statements, is that really what we're talking about is the path of non-attachment. It's not attaching to feelings, and one of the techniques that I use to not attach is to be that observer. Is I'll picture a stream, pleasant stream, and all of the feelings that I have negatively, or those energies that get in my way, I'll see them written on a piece of wood. And as the piece of wood floats by, I acknowledge it, and I let it float by down that peaceful stream, and then come back. And in that sense, I can see it. It's like a closure for me.
Knowledge, acknowledge, and release.
Yes, exactly. But not attaching to that piece of wood and saying, I'm grabbing it out of the water. I just let it flow by, and that frees me up so that I can move on and do the other things that I need to do.
The attachment is the judgment that we spoke of.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what causes you to hang on to it, so that that feeling comes up later in some other iteration. Yes.
As it always will.
Correct. Unless it's looked at, acknowledged, thanked for the lessons that it brought, and then let it sail by. Yes.
And sometimes it takes a lot of releasing
Yes.
every time it comes up.
Correct.
It can take several
Dissipates,
stages.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes you've got to get at it in layers.
Kind of comes at different angles and sometimes in a subtle way, but
And
eventually.
sometimes also it takes deeper cleaning and cleansing to be able to let it go. Sometimes it takes deeper cleansing just to be able to look at it and acknowledge it. So
Yes.
it's gonna be different depending on how deep it is, how deep the hurt went,
Mm.
and so
And
on.
I'm being guided to share that the key to being able to do this is to simply embrace a belief system that says, when these things happen, this is a good thing. Having those feelings, it's an opportunity to look at something deeper. And so when those feelings come up, instead of looking at them negatively, just choose to look at them as positively. You might not be able to, in that moment, do the work, but if you can at least say, this feeling is showing up to teach me something. I might not want to look at it right now, but I acknowledge that I have an opportunity for growth. And just then, you can just set it down for a second, but taking the charge out of it by giving it a positive light will take the negative energetic charge off of it that allows it to be more manageable. I have a woman from the South that I used to work with in Theta Healing. She always said the triggers were a blessing, and she said it with this, really cute Southern accent. But every time you got upset about something, oh, here's another blessing. Here's another blessing coming. They were opportunities for growth.
That's a good way to look at it. And also, as well as the piece of wood floating down the stream, we could see it as birds flying by or clouds floating
Mhm.
by,
Yeah,
and not attach them, just
I like
observing,
the
watching
visual
it,
of
be
that,
listening.
because you're acknowledging its presence, but you're also at the same time acknowledging it leaving.
mhm,
Yeah.
It's
exactly.
a great visual.
Yeah, and one of my power places happens to be a place where there's a stream and it's quiet woods, so that's, for me, that really works for me. But,
I think I tend to visualize them with wings on them.
oh,
Just kind of, once I look, hovering in front of me, and then I allow it to fly away.
there you go.
Yeah, whatever works for you.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Very good.
Anybody have any questions for Dr. Sadhu?
I just have a comment that and I'm sure that you would acknowledge that we all have a masculine and feminine
Yes.
divine within us, and I feel that my masculine supports and loves my feminine, and vice versa. So it's a really balanced feeling, a way of life that I've evolved into.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. As I said, the work first starts within ourselves. And again, that's a good message for the men, is that we must work to balance, to bring up that feminine side many times. Certainly that's the work that I've done on myself, is to bring up so that there is a balance also in that feminine side. And that's very important. That's a very important first step. We first have to work on ourselves, change ourselves. We can't change anybody else, but we can change ourselves. And having that acknowledgement and that understanding that you need that balance within yourself is a very important step.
And then when we have it within, we can see it in others. We can see that they have it or they don't have it.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody watch the show House? No? With Hugh Laurie? We watched an episode the other night where David Arquette, the one that plays the medium's wife, was in this episode, and he was a speaker on marriage counseling, and the opening scene of the episode was called Marriage Rescue, and he is coming across very much like Dr. Sadhu about the joint, the effort between the two, the combined, and he collapses, and of course he goes to the hospital, and it's up to House and his medical team to figure out what's wrong with him, and they decide that his testosterone is low, and that this happened as a result of an accident he'd had a few years ago. And so he said, I thought this way that I was my spiritual development, and that I had evolved, and that this union I have now with my wife, and that we do everything together and with his team, he said, I thought I'd evolved. And he said, you're telling me it's because my testosterone is low? So they give him some testosterone shots, and they said, well, you can take these lessons with you, and all of a sudden he becomes this guy who's slapping his wife's behind and making decisions without her, and he reverts to this person, and the wife is just like, I don't know who you are anymore. And they find out it was something else that was wrong, and they decide in the end, they said, you still need these testosterone shots, and he said, I'd rather do without them. And he said, if it means me going back to that way I was before, I'll take my risk. But I just love when Hollywood comes through and in these subtle ways really just talked about what we're talking about here to an unsuspecting audience of, all the viewers. But in the end, he said, I would rather be the person I am now, and this gentle person that makes decisions together with my wife and I, than that person, and if it has health risks, I'll take that risk. But I just remembered that as we were talking. It was really everything that you're saying, and I think it's great when Hollywood does these things because people are beginning to understand this without really getting the forefront of theirs.
It'd be interesting to find out who wrote it, if it was a man or a woman, or maybe it was a collaboration.
Well, let's hope it was a collaboration.
Yeah.
But you can go to, is it NBC? Who does it? Fox. It's Fox. If you go to fox.com, you can watch the previous episodes online, and the episode is called Man of the House. But you can do that, and
I would just like to mention one last thing, is at 1 o'clock we will be speaking more about this topic in the way of the priestess and the dragon. So if you'd like to hang around and come for that, you're certainly most welcome.
thank you. Any questions? We'll go ahead and turn the end. We'll do our announcements and our giving envelopes, and we'll do our closing meditation.